We have no commercials yet.
We do not have any commercials. We don't have any sponsors. We don't need any sponsors. Welcome to the HoopsHabit Hangout. This is our 20th show. Today we're going to talk about the NBA draft coming up tomorrow night. We've got a special guest with us, Paul Coro, Phoenix Suns beat writer for the Arizona Republic. How you doing, Paul?
Good. Thanks for having me, Michael.
I can see that you are in a very undisclosed location. That's good.
I'm not being held hostage. It's just really.
If you start blinking SOS, we're going to have callers.
To hold up to prove what day it is. That's the scary part.
With us, as always, is Phil. How you doing, Phil?
Good, Michael. How you doing?
Good. Couldn't be better. Gerald?
That's unfortunate.
Doing all right. Just rocking the hat to make up for a bad haircut this morning.
Do you want to show the world or no?
I absolutely do not.
All right, let's get started. We're going to talk about the NBA draft first. I want to talk about value picks versus having one of the top picks in the lottery. Now, I know there's different trains of thought. If I had the number one pick in this specific draft, I would trade. I would find a way to gather some assets, try to go after a couple of value picks in the mid-teens or even in future drafts because I'm not sold on any of the top guys. Or if I'm the Cavaliers, the report was they offered the pick trying to go after Kevin Love. I love something like that. You've got a proven commodity going after a guy you know exactly what you're going to get if they could resign him. So my question for you guys here, do you use that pick and try to hit a home run, or do you use value picks, try to build up a cache of picks like Ryan McDonough has done, and go after players that you know are going to perform for you? Phil, what do you think?
I'm going to get into this more later on, but I'm going to look for the basketball player that can help my organization the most. You know, and try to balance that between the long-term home run and the immediate, hey, this guy can come in and help me right now. I think one of the reasons you see teams in the lottery year after year after year is they keep swinging for home runs and they're hitting foul pop-ups.
Yeah, well, Paul, what do you think? Is that what the Suns are doing this year?
Well, first about Cleveland, I think they're clearly not sure about what they're doing because they're talking about bringing Dante Exum in the night before the draft. They can't even decide between Parker and Wiggins, and now they're bringing an extra element into the equation. So they're obviously not certain, and their recent draft history isn't that good in the high play. Not that it was the GM David Griffin in charge of those picks, but I'm sure Dan Gilbert is a little bit skittish about another high pick, and he's a guy that likes big splashes and big names. Now, the Suns' situation, they can't get into one of those high spots. They've accumulated picks, and it was with the goal of acquiring a star. But if they do package picks, it's probably only going to move them up a little bit, and then we get into a value conversation about whether it's worth it to give up an extra asset to get to 4 or 5 picks higher when this draft is pretty deep to get a good guy that they like at 14 that might be top 10 on their board.
So if you're the Cavaliers, you're going to trade that pick, or are you going to take a shot at something else?
Me, I think they take Wiggins. I think you go superstar potential, and Parker's obviously more of an impact guy and probably can step right in the league and be rookie of the year and is going to be a solid player. But I don't know what their intel on Wiggins is or what their hesitations are. We saw teams have hesitations about McLemore last year when we were talking about him as a number one for a long time, and those kind of played out this season. He wasn't the instant splash, but I think Wiggins is different. He's got a lot more potential to be solid at both ends, and it's not like he struggled all season. He had some big games and played like a superstar performer as a freshman.
Gerald, what do you think? Are you going to keep that pick, or are you going to trade it away?
I think if it were any team other than the Cleveland Cavaliers, you take a chance with the superstar potential. You go for an Andrew Wiggins who, as much as everyone criticized his shooting or his aggression, he actually had a better true shooting percentage than Jabari Parker, so there's a fun fact for you. But I think because it's the Cleveland Cavaliers and because that LeBron James possibility is being dangled in front of them again, that a lot of their decisions that have been made over the past few months are keeping that option open. and I think trading would get them the best asset. You talked about Kevin Love. They're worried about Kevin Love re-signing for in Cleveland after this one season and his contract is up. If they can get Kevin Love and add LeBron James to that with already having Kyrie Irving, I mean, is Kevin Love really going to go somewhere else? I don't see it happening. But, you know, Cleveland has a lot of pressure on them with this pick because this is their third #1 pick in 4 years. It's their fourth top 4 pick in the last, 5 years, I believe. And they're still not a playoff team. That's just unacceptable. So they might not be as patient to wait on Andrew Wiggins to develop into a superstar as other teams might be.
Well, here's one reason why I bring it up. You know, I took a look at, now I know win share is a very noisy stat, especially for younger guys, because you get drafted into a terrible team, you know, you're not going to put up big numbers as far as win share is concerned. But over the long haul, you'd expect those top picks to turn those teams around. You'd expect them to build around those players and those numbers to rise. Looking at the last 6 years of win shares, we've only got 7 of the last 30 players that were drafted in the top 5 finished in the top 5 in win shares for their year. Last year we had Mason Plumlee, number 22 overall, Tim Hardaway, number 24, Steven Adams, number 12, Kelly Olynyk, number 13. We got Anthony Davis's #1 pick, who was up there in 2012. 2011 was the same kind of thing, though. Kawhi Leonard, number 15, Kenneth Faried, number 22, Parsons, 38, Isaiah Thomas, the last pick in the draft, number 60. So that's why I'm so convinced that the right way to do it is to trade that #1 pick away. You could trade it for those middle round picks and try to find, and we didn't even talk about salary in this case. You know, you can find a guy in the early second round where maybe you have a little bit more control over when you're going to extend them, how you're going to extend them, as opposed to a #1 guy where you're kind of locked into doing what you're going to do. Why not take a shot at that, especially in a draft like this where we have no clue if any of these guys are going to become superstars. I mean, Wiggins has all the tools, but he's extremely raw. We don't know if he's going to be able to create his own offense in the pros or not. What did he shoot last year in college? 44%, I think it was. Yeah, 44.8%, so it's not like he was off the charts. All right, let's move on. Gerald Bourguet, you're going to talk about the Phoenix Suns and whether or not they can be a dark horse spot for some of these big-name free agents out there.
Right. I mean, when you look at the big names that are going out there, you've got LeBron James, you've got Carmelo Anthony, who have both opted out of their contracts, and you've got Kevin Love, who has been thrown around in just about every trade rumor you can imagine at this point. But nobody's really talking about the Phoenix Suns being a possible landing spot for any of these guys outside of, you know, people that live in Arizona. And it's kind of, you know, I have a lot of friends that are Suns fans, and it's very frustrating to them that nobody really considers Phoenix a destination for a big-name free agent. When you look at what this team was able to accomplish last year, winning 48 games with a bunch of guys that have been labeled for the most part as, you know, role players or misfits in their previous situations, it's really remarkable what we've got going on here. And although, you know, they don't have a top 10 pick in this year's deep draft, they do have a number of picks. They've got 4 picks in this year's draft that we've been waiting to see if McDonough's going to put something together, some kind of bundle to bring Kevin Love here. And unfortunately, the truth is that for that to happen, I think the Timberwolves would want Eric Bledsoe to be involved. And that's something the Suns would have to consider, much like the Warriors had to consider whether Klay Thompson was expendable in that deal. He was, just for the record, but I really do think that the Suns are being overlooked as a possible destination for these free agents. What do you guys think?
Well, you like go first, Paul. You've been around long enough.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at purely basketball stuff, of course they should look at the Suns. You know, LeBron James would be fabulous in a Suns system, and I never rule out LeBron entirely, even though I think it's far-fetched, just because of the Bledsoe factor, their relationship. Market or Cleveland, and that's the way a lot of the stars operate. And unfortunately, people don't Phoenix is a mid-market, and that's considered by players. It's not a basketball-only decision. As far as Kevin Love, this accumulated these picks to be in the position to acquire a star player because they missed out on the James Harden sweepstakes when they didn't have that sort of package to rival Houston. But the problem with Minnesota is they don't just want draft picks. They're not in a situation where they want to project and picks and keep waiting 2 or 3 more years. They've been out of the playoffs long enough, so they want some impact players. And like you already said, that probably requires Bledsoe. And there's no indication from the Suns that they're going to be willing to part with Dragic or Bledsoe. They acquired him last year with the idea of those two being the core, and they think they can still add a third piece in free agency beyond that to make it better without. But so all they have in the Kevin Love sweepstakes, and plus you got to even be certain that Kevin Love wants to come and will re-sign. And from all indication from his camp, there's a small group of teams that he's willing to do that with.
And I think it definitely hurt his chances re-signing here if Bledsoe was involved in the deal, because that would obviously kill a big 3 potential that could be going on down here.
Yeah.
Paul, what was the last big-name free agent that came to Phoenix?
Steve Nash, but that was a special circumstance. Or even Dragic, you could say a couple years ago, but he wasn't that big at the time. But, the difference with those situations is those guys had prior relationships with the Suns. You have to, you go back to Barkley. That was a trade. How many times have the Suns actually gone out and got a free agent who was the top of the list type guy? There was a time where they tried to keep McDyess here, and he ended up going to Denver. Danny Manning and Tom Chambers. Those are the types of, guys that had choice of any team that come here. But really, Steve Nash came here because he had been drafted by the Suns, played with Rex Chapman, was one of his best friends. Rex was in the front office. He had a good relationship with the Colangelos. Cuban balked at matching, and he was a Sun. And it was all in a day, and it happened quickly. And even him at the time, he wasn't the megastar. The Suns, had toyed with the idea of chasing Kobe Bryant before they went after Nash when they realized there was no chance with Kobe.
Yeah. Phil, you got anything to add here?
Well, as far as why they're not seen as a destination, it's probably because, as Paul pointed out, they never have been a destination for free agents. I'm not sure why. I mean, what their training staff has been able to do with guys like Nash, like Grant Hill. They've nursed some productive years out of Anthony Hardaway late in his career. I would think a guy would want to go down there. The weather's nice. The sun shines. I don't understand why it isn't a destination. I just know that it isn't.
I'm thinking NBA players don't really like to golf that much. That must be the issue.
It'd be if you had a senior PGA team, Phoenix would be the hottest market in America.
Phoenix and Orlando would dominate that. Yeah.
All right, Phil.
Well,
let's go.
Once a lot of players get here, then they find out why it's good to be here. But it's most players aren't growing up in the Southwest culture or a city like Phoenix. Most players are growing up in East Coast, LA,
right,
Texas. Places that are much different than Phoenix. So in their eyes, there's a certain reputation about what kind of city Phoenix is.
It's old people.
It's a lot of old people. All right, Phil. Why don't you go ahead with talking about Jabari Parker or Andrew Wiggins? Who is the better player? Who's going to be the better player?
Well, apparently Cleveland's answer to that question is Jabandrew Parkins. They can't make up their mind, and now they've thrown Dante Exum into the mix. It's the question that's driving the draft, Parker or Wiggins. And it's a byproduct of the philosophical question that's been driving personnel decisions over the last couple of decades. Do you want NBA ready, or do you want upside? Do you want a guy at the top of the draft that can come in and help you now, or are you going to, as we alluded to earlier, swing for the home run? Everybody loves the high ceiling, but nobody points out that the guy with the high ceiling that isn't there yet also has a lower floor. The NBA ready guy, a guy like Jabari Parker is thought to be the more NBA ready guy. Wiggins is thought to be the better long-term prospect. But to me, that tells me that Parker's floor is a lot higher than Wiggins' floor is. And I was just, am I reading that wrong? All we hear, the buzzword of draft of the draft every year for the last God knows how many years is upside, upside, upside. Nobody ever flips that over to look at the fact that if you swing and miss, it could damage your franchise for a decade. And I was just wondering what you guys' thoughts on that would be.
Well, I agree with you as far as, it goes in my thinking that you can't afford to swing and miss. And you can score, to continue with the baseball analogies here, you can continue to score runs hitting singles and doubles. You can put together a team and have a successful scheme and compete. You don't have to go out and get the best player in basketball and still compete. Now, it helps. Obviously, the Spurs just beat the Heat, but they're doing it on the shoulders of Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, and a bevy of years together where they're brothers. They know exactly what they're going to do together. They know exactly what they're capable of. If you take a player like Wiggins, raw, could be awesome, could be terrible. You throw him in there with some coach who doesn't necessarily use him properly, I think that he could get totally ruined. But if you take him, you put him with a disciplined coach who's going to keep good tabs on him and instill those kind of good habits in him early in his NBA career, things can be totally different. So to add to what you're saying, I also think it matters who you're surrounding him with. If you get a situation where you're lucky and you've got, we'll go back to the Spurs again, when Tim Duncan was drafted, you had David Robinson there. How many better role models in the NBA could you look at than David Robinson?
But if anybody coming to Milwaukee is going to get Larry Sanders, so got that going.
So if they get in any bar fights, they're going to be in terrific shape. But aside from that, I just don't see. That's pretty much what I got to say about that. Paul, what do you think?
I think downside is a great point, but I also think there's a huge difference in downside on a guy like Wiggins and downside on a guy like Zach LaVine. They're both tremendous athletes.
Yeah.
So Wiggins is obviously a better player. His downside might be Rudy Gay. that might be the worst. That
might
Wiggins
be the worst case scenario, right?
And then he's still a really, really good player. And you're not, because your the first round rookie contracts, even though a number 1 pick's getting substantially more millions than even like the number 5, they're still a really good bargain. They're the best bargain in the league until you re-up for that second contract.
Right.
So you can whip a little bit if it but I just don't think Wiggins is just going to be a bust. I don't think he's Luke Jackson or Adam Morrison or one of those guys.
NBA champion. What are you talking about?
That's right. My bad.
Zach LaVine has Adam Morrison written all over him. He couldn't start at UCLA at the end of the season, and people are talking about him as a top 10 pick.
Joe Alexander version 2.0.
There you go. There you go. Somebody told me, this is a point I wanted to bring up on this whole draft discussion. Somebody I used to know a long time ago generally had a pretty sour outlook on life, but they told me that potential is nothing but a 9-letter word that means you haven't actually done a damn thing yet. And that's kind of what the draft is in a nutshell.
That's where we are when we talk about 19 and 20-year-olds who've played 1 year of college basketball. That's the
thing. We've got so much less body of work now than we used to.
Yeah, it's made it dicier than ever. That's why everybody sees a 4-year player now like Adrian Payne and says, "What's wrong with him?"
Exactly. That's one of those things that will make me go on an old man rant, though. So
too late. We already got it.
Well,
Gerald, you got anything to add here?
No, I just think when we're talking about this discussion, something that gets left out is the fact that Jabari Parker, we keep labeling him as the most NBA-ready player. I'm not convinced that he doesn't have a ton of upside as well. I mean, like you guys said, he's only played 1 year of college basketball, and he's already being compared to Carmelo Anthony, and that alley-oop dunk he had in one of the first games of the season had shades of Grant Hill at Duke. And
yeah.
I just don't think. I mean, I would personally take Jabari if I were the Cavs, just because they've already screwed up enough, and you want the safer prospect at this point. But I do think that Parker has tons of upside if someone can teach him how to play defense.
That's the big if. I keep seeing these mocks today that have Embiid going number 3 to the 76ers. Is there a rule that the 76ers have to have a freakishly tall man wearing suits on the bench every year? I mean, if they draft Embiid, it's going to be, buying him in 12, Noel last year, and now they're looking at a whole year with no Embiid this year. Stop drafting guys that can't play.
They draft guys on delay. They say, hey, next year we got another first rounder coming in. He's been with us the whole year, but eventually
it's the DVR pick. I get it.
That's a good way to say it.
Embiid's probably better than Noel.
Embiid on one foot may be better than Noel. I was never sold on Noel.
Yeah, so you kind of have to ignore what you've done before, and I'm not convinced that because of news in the past week that somebody's going to be out for 9 months that everybody gives up on the potential of Embiid.
I know.
He's good, and he's come too far too quickly to not think he's got some major potential.
Two stress fractures in 4 months.
Yep, it always scares me with big men. I mean, it scares me about Alex Len.
It starts to get hard to see the 7-footer for the big pile of red flags.
Yep, and we've seen it a lot here with Robin Lopez when he was a Sun, and now we're experiencing it with Alex Len and his ankles. Big men and ankles and feet scare me.
Oh yeah, there's a long history of it.
This is a little bit off the subject, but Gerald, were you even alive to see Grant Hill at Duke?
Grant Hill at Duke. What year was that? 92.
He graduated in 92.
You couldn't have been alive then. Forget it. If you have to sit back and think like what year it was, you were too young to watch.
He doesn't remember it.
I was probably watching. Just I probably wasn't coherently understanding.
You were watching through a belly button hole or something, or what? I don't get it.
Okay. I'm just gonna have to throw this out there. I saw his father play for the Cowboys.
I'm laughing with you, not at you.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to our guest questions. Each of us have a question for Paul. I'm going to start here. Now, we talked about this a little bit already as far as bringing free agents or bringing big names into Phoenix, or at the very least keeping the names here in Phoenix. Is there some kind of a stigma surrounding Phoenix because of Robert Sarver, or is it because of a lack of postseason success? What is it? Because the information age is here. People know that the weather's nice. They know that the golf is great. They know that our roads are nice. So what is it? Why won't people come here?
I don't think it's lack of success because historically the franchise is, fifth wingest in NBA history. Obviously they've had the worst glut of non-playoff appearances recently, but under, since Sarver's been owner, they've been to 3 conference finals. Some of that was laid out before he bought the team, and he inherited an awfully good squad and got some of that success. I think what gave him a big hiccup in franchise history was the whole Lance Blank regime and the way they retooled things, after Amari's departure and the mistakes made with Warwick and Turkoglu and Childress in that summer, and then again with Blank's decisions, whether it be drafting Kendall Marshall or signing Michael Beasley. They lost a lot of respect around the league that they're rebuilt in the last year and gained some back. But I think it goes back to some of the discussion we had before about market. I think the style of play is always going to be attractive to players, but sometimes it's more attractive to the type of players who are trying to prove their worth. Guys who, are maybe looking for that breakthrough in their careers and know they can come to a team that fits them and gives them good numbers. And we've seen that with so many guys, and you referred to guys with health problems who can come and work with the training staff and the magic they've done with so many players. But it goes back to can they land that megastar free agent, but I think they're more likely to do that either through the draft or a trade than just straight up signing a superstar free agent.
Well, and part of that was because of Steve Nash, right? I mean, people want to play with a point guard like that. Do you think that they can get back to that if they have a couple of years in a row of Dragic improving and Bledsoe signing a long-term extension? Are those the kind of guys that people want to come play with?
It could be. I mean, neither one of them are the type of point guard that Nash is. Both are more scoring guards, more combo guards than Nash. Everybody wanted to play with Nash because everybody's shooting percentage went up like 6 to 8 points just playing with him because they had such open shots. But it was also, again, that was a lot of those second-tier guys, not major stars, and guys that came here, had better numbers, and then went on and got better contracts somewhere else.
Yeah.
So That's can it happen? Sure. Dragic has a lot of respect. You saw like guys like Kevin Durant saying that he should be an all-star, and Bledsoe's got his connection with LeBron and other Kentucky people. So it could happen down the line, but first they got to become a playoff team before I think some of that happens.
Gerald, go ahead with your question.
Yeah, so the Suns have been stockpiling draft picks for a while now. We've all been speculating about the possible deals that they could be used for, but the Suns have been pretty quiet with all these rumors that have been flying around about Kevin Love and Carmelo Anthony and LeBron James. What is the probability? I mean, obviously the chances are a lot higher now that we're the day before the draft, but what is the probability that the Suns use all three of their first-round draft picks tomorrow?
Boy, almost next to none. I mean, they just don't want 3 first-round picks coming in on the roster, on the active roster anyway. I mean, maybe I think in the one scenario, if they didn't trade to lower their picks, they could draft 2 guys and take an international guy and stash them so that only 2 come into the roster. But I'd be surprised. Unless one of them, too, the Bakersfield factor with them controlling the D-League system, I could see a second draftee being a guy that develops there and plays all season, sort of like what some other teams have done with the teams they have control over. They're going to mirror everything, exact system. They're going to pick coaches, and then a guy can get playing time rather than sitting around a lot like Archie Goodwin and Alex Len had to do last season. And they want to play those guys this season, so to bring in 2 or 3 more rookies and have them try to get in the system isn't going to happen. So I think they package picks to move up. They use the picks to acquire a veteran. They trade back into another year, or they do draft and stash. But the other factor too is they not only have 3 picks this year, they got 3 first-rounders next year.
Well, maybe it wouldn't even be that bad of an idea to package some of those picks for the future picks so that they don't have to make those personnel decisions and hope they can strike gold with developing their team and getting something huge next year, right?
Yeah, and they got that Lakers pick next year, which, depending what the Lakers do this summer, could be a very valuable pick because it's only got top 5 protection on it. And if they still are mired in their current situation, it could be very valuable. But this draft is probably a better draft. It's supposed to be considered one of the best in recent memory. So I would be surprised if they didn't take a pick at 14 because there's just so many good shooters in this draft that could fit well into their system, or you never know what value is going to even slip there. Everybody's boards are always different, and it's very likely that whoever they pick 14th, they'll say was 8th or 9th on their board.
Right. Gerald, anything else?
Nope.
All right, Phil, go ahead with your question.
I just wanted to throw in that I love the fact that more teams are starting to understand what the D-League can do for them if they take ownership of their affiliate. You can put in, like Paul was talking about, the mirroring system, coaches who use the same philosophies and the same nomenclature, so you can go get guys quality minutes against professional level competition without having to gum up your active roster. Yeah, I think it's a great thing. We alluded to this, my question earlier, and it's just because I keep hearing the name in the rumor mill, and the fact that he's basically a ticking time bomb with no cushioning tissue left in his knee. Is Eric Bledsoe his son on opening night 2014-15?
Yeah, I think so. I obviously can't say that definitively because nothing from him or his agents would totally give you that indication. But the Suns are in control of the situation, and they've said all along that they intend to match anything he's given out there. And if you watch and heard some of the recent conversations that McDonough has during draft workouts, he makes reference to Goran and Eric, and I just don't think you refer to those guys that much if in the back of your head you have any doubt that he'll be there. I don't think you would work up fans like that. And
no.
And I think when they were together, and remember that this was Bledsoe's first season as a starter too. When they played together, they won 2/3 of their games. and so it worked. You know what
Oh, they were amazingly effective together. I wasn't sure it would work, but man, they won me over fast.
Yeah. So, and this is the, you know, the whole, can two point guards play together? You know, the league's becoming a little bit more positionless, so that matters less. You know, Hornacek's idea of keeping one of them on the court at all times gave them a tremendous advantage over other teams because everybody else has a drop off with their backup point guard. But the Suns never had that drop off. They always had a premier point guard on the floor, and to have two of them on the floor at the same time, it negates defenses from overloading on one side and creates advantages on the other. And it was just it worked. And I think you have to go see it for another year and see how it plays out.
How much is too much for Bledsoe?
It doesn't sound like there is a too much. I mean, the only thing I wonder about is if somebody, put the poison pill in the contract and, someone who decipher what would hurt the Suns' payroll now or down the line most, did a, Ashik kind of deal where it's backloaded heavily, to where it's hard to take. But I think they expect that somebody out there is going to do something big. He's 24 years old and he averaged 18 and 6 in his first season as a starter. Lots of people are going to be interested in that.
So someone offers him 4 years, $56 million, they match without even thinking.
Yeah, I think they would be okay with that. I think they're going to try to do something first before he even gets to the offer sheet time. They want to be able to control that a little bit more, and they have the advantage of throwing the extra year out there. So maybe they can get him at a lower number per year, but offer him an extra year. I just don't know if Bledsoe's camp is going to want that because he can strike again when he's 28 and get another rich deal.
Sure. All right, let us move on to fill in the blank. Now, I'm going to give you guys 3 different phrases here. Just a short answer to this, how you feel about it. First up, Joel Embiid's injury is blank. Phil?
Alarming.
Curious.
Curious. All right. Gerald?
My blank's a little bit longer, but going to make him the steal of the draft.
Yeah, so you're a believer. You think he sits out, most of the next season and comes back and is gangbusters?
I think it's too depressing to think that he's not going to do that. I mean, what NBA fan isn't pulling for him at this point? So I really think that before it's thrown in our face officially, not going to be able to have a successful NBA career, I'd rather choose to think that he will.
Yeah, I hear you. For me, his injury is worrisome. We talked about big men and lower leg injuries, and yeah, maybe they get a good season out of him while he's healthy, and then he breaks down again. Is he going to have a 10, 12-year career? I don't know. Next up, the current setup of the NBA draft lottery is blank. Phil?
Fairly ridiculous.
Fairly ridiculous, all right. Paul?
Annoying.
Gerald?
I was going to say annoying, but I'll go frustrated.
Yeah, my man.
I was going to go with broken. I mean, how can you have a team, the worst team in basketball, and you only get a 1 in 4 shot of having the first pick? I mean, that's terrible to me.
Yeah, well, when was the last time the worst team had the number 1 overall pick? We're at a decade now.
And that's pretty amazing.
I just think it's funny that as much as we complain about how many number 1 picks Cleveland has gotten in the last few years, despite failing consistently, that they're still in a position where they can screw this up. So, I mean,
yeah.
Maybe they've gotten a little lucky, but on the other hand, God still hates Cleveland, so I think it balances out.
Well, they didn't help their cause by taking Anthony Bennett last year and Baby Odin 3 years ago. So,
Baby Odin.
Kyrie Irving doesn't even stay there.
Well, yeah.
They may get 3 more in a row.
Well, you didn't like the Baby Odin reference?
No, I did. It made me smile a little bit.
That's my name for Kyrie.
Next up, LeBron James's best play is to blank. Phil?
Milk it for all it's worth.
How much more money can the guy get?
How many times are you the best at what you do and have all the leverage? Milk it for what it's worth.
At least twice, apparently. Paul?
To not go anywhere but Miami or Cleveland. I mean, it seems like the only thing that could worsen his reputation is to not. If he returns to Miami, consistency in his career, and he looks like he's not leaving a situation because it went south a little bit. If he goes to Cleveland, he's going home. He's helping a franchise that's been long suffering and repairing his image there. But if he goes anywhere else, it just looks self-serving.
Gerald?
I completely agree with Paul. You can't go anywhere other than Miami or Cleveland because, I mean, even if he leaves Miami, there still will be some backlash for the fact that he left a franchise that just went to 4 consecutive NBA Finals. But, I mean, those are the only 2 destinations that I can think of that won't have people calling him disloyal and championship chaser and all that kind of crap.
Well, this is off topic a little bit here, but I see a little Wojbomb.
I was just going to mention that. Omer Ashik to New Orleans.
Yeah, Houston finalizing a deal. I'm thinking that's to open up some money for a little Carmelo Anthony, maybe LeBron and Carmelo and
on the flip side of that deal, it lets Anthony Davis play the 4 and not the 5. That's good for Anthony Davis.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, let us move on. That was supposed to be phrases as opposed to just one word because the next game is one word. So, Paul's a man of few words, so it works out for him either way. He doesn't mind. All right, next up, one word. A Carmelo Anthony LeBron James tandem would be Phil.
Fun.
Paul.
Gross.
Gerald.
Obnoxious.
Losing for everybody else in the league. Andrew Wiggins being questioned about a club stabbing is a blank.
Red herring. 2 words. Sorry. Mash them together. Red herring.
Man, that one stumped me. Is a anomaly.
Gerald?
Controversy.
I'm going non-story. I could hang out at a club, someone gets stabbed. If I'm famous, they're going to ask me about it, right?
What if you were hanging out at an ice rink in Little Rock?
I would feel better about that. Where was he? Oh, he was at the grocery store over in Glendale. Super teams.
A stabbing at an ice rink in Little Rock actually wouldn't be that surprising.
That's true.
I used to panic those people, man.
He just got in an argument. He wasn't even in a stabbing. He was. It's like the worst, arrest ever in the league. There's nothing you can even be mad at him about. He got in an argument with a guy at a skating rink, and he's 19.
Super teams are blanking the NBA.
Reinvigorating.
Okay, Phil.
Normal.
Normaling.
Normalizing. There have always been super teams. That's my point.
Revolutionizing.
Okay. Yeah, I like Paul and Gerald on that one. I think it's a great idea. I think that for us to have interest in a lot of these other teams that are not all that interesting, we need to have these super teams. It's like the Yankees. Your team's terrible, but the Yankees come to town, you're interested in your sport, you're interested in your team, you're rooting your team on, even though they got no chance to win. But hey, we can beat David and we can beat Goliath today. So I love the super teams.
The thing is that they've always been there. I mean, you don't think Magic, Kareem, and James Worthy wasn't a super team? Bird, McHale, Parrish wasn't a super team?
But those felt different.
Chamberlain, Baylor, West wasn't a super team? Come on.
I mean, they were super teams for sure, but the way that they were manufactured is what fans are griping about more than anything, I think.
Well, that's because fans live in this fantasy world where loyalty actually exists.
It's a business.
Yeah,
last up,
always has been.
Last up is our game of over-under. 3 questions. You just tell me if it's over or under. Of the last 15 number 1 overall picks, how many ended up winning the Rookie of the Year? Over or under 6? Phil?
Last 15?
Yep.
I'm going to go with under.
Paul?
Under.
Gerald?
Under.
You're all correct. The answer is 5, which was under. Kyrie Irving, Blake Griffin, Derrick Rose, LeBron James, and Elton Brand, who won the co-MVP or co-Rookie of the Year that year. Next up, of the first rounders in the 2013 NBA Draft, over or under 4 players did not play a minute in the NBA. Nope.
Over or under 4?
Over or under 4 players.
I'm going to say under.
Paul?
I'm going to go over.
Gerald?
Over.
It is under. Only three players did not play a minute in the NBA. Nerlens Noel, Lucas Nogueira, Livio Jean-Charles.
I was counting Anthony Bennett.
I didn't say play a good minute or a solid minute.
Productive minutes are different.
All right, we're going to lob one in there for Paul on this one. Talking about the Suns, on court, off court, all right? When Goran Dragic was on the court, the team's offensive rating was over or under 9 points better. Phil?
When he was on as opposed to off,
Yes.
I'm going to say over.
Paul?
This is supposed to be a softball for me? Over.
And Gerald?
I'll take the over.
It was over. When he was on the court, they had a 112.5 offensive rating. When he was off, 102.5, a 10-point difference. Now, we had a tie. So, Phil and Gerald, I got a bonus question for you.
All right.
The person who comes closest.
Without
What
going
was-
over wins the showcase.
Don't say $1. Don't be that guy. Same question, but with Eric Bledsoe. Who can come closest to the amount difference when he's on the court or off the court? Phil, give me a number.
On +6.
Plus 6.0?
Yeah.
Gerald?
On +4.
Gerald, you win. He was a minus 2.8 on the court. When he was on the court, 107.4. When he was off the court, 110.2. Though defensively, he did have a 5.5-point positive difference. Gerald, it's your first win ever.
Yes.
That's amazing. It's about time. And
It
thank
took
you
a
for-
rookie being here for him to get it.
That is true. Our previous guest was a crackerjack. I don't even know what to call him. He was a sharp. I think Vegas had him at even money.
Savant.
Apparently, I should shave my head every day then.
Shave just the sides. Leave the top there. Paul, you didn't get to see it, but trust me, it's
It's the sling blade look.
a little bad. All right, everybody, that is our show for this week. We want to thank you very much for our special guest, Paul Coro. Thank you very much for showing up.
Thank you. I look like an evil Disney character in here.
Well, my baby's asleep, so we're okay. We're okay. Phil and Gerald, you guys can check us out over at HoopsHabit.com any day. We'll see you in a couple of weeks for our next Hoops Habit Hangout. Thank you again.